AI is genuinely great at writing code, but only when you give it the right context. The difference is huge. A minimal prompt like write a function to sort users will often fail because the model has to guess the language, the data shape, and how you want edge cases handled. Compare that to a complete prompt. On screen, you can see one that asks for a TypeScript function, defines the exact user type, says to sort by created at newest first, lists the edge cases like empty arrays and null dates, specifies not to mutate the original, and asks for type annotations, a JS comment, and example usage. That second prompt leaves nothing to chance, so the code comes back clean and usable on the first try. To make this repeatable, use a simple checklist every time you ask AI for code. First, the programming language, so it doesn't pick one for you. Second, the input types and format, the exact shape of the data going in. Third, the output types and format, what you expect back. Fourth, the edge cases to handle, things like empty inputs, nulls, or invalid values. And fifth, any constraints, whether that's performance limits or style rules. If you run through these 5 points before you hit send, you'll close almost every gap the model would otherwise have to fill with a guess. It only takes a few seconds, and it consistently turns rough output into code you can actually drop into your project. Let's apply the checklist. The exercise asks you to write a complete prompt for a function that validates email addresses. A strong answer names the language and signature, like a Python function called validateOnEmail that takes a string and returns a Boolean. It defines what valid means, a local part, an @sign, and a domain with at least one dot, no spaces, case insensitive. It lists edge cases such as none, an empty string, or white space only, all returning false. And it sets style rules. Use regex, add type hints, include a docstring with examples, and avoid outside libraries. Notice how it hits every checklist item. Language, input, output, edge cases, and constraints are all there, which is exactly why the generated function comes back ready to use. Beyond correctness, you can shape code quality by stating your style requirements up front. Look at this React example. Instead of just asking for a component, the prompt demands a functional component with hooks and no class, TypeScript with strict types, Tailwind for styling with no inline styles, props destructured right in the function signature, custom hooks for logic, no any types, meaningful variable names instead of X, Y, or data, and JSDoc on the public interface. These rules tell the model exactly how your codebase looks, so what comes back matches your conventions instead of some generic default. The lesson here is simple. The more clearly you describe your style, the less cleanup you do afterward, and the more the output feels like it was written by someone on your team. AI can also generate whole structures, not just single functions, if you lay out the structure for it. This prompt asks for a complete express endpoint and names the exact files it wants. A routes file, a controller for business logic, a middleware for input validation, and a types file for the interfaces. Then it describes the endpoint, a post to /API/users, with name and email required and age optional. And it asks for error handling, input validation, appropriate HTTP status codes, and TypeScript types throughout. Because you've defined the file layout and the requirements, the model can produce a coherent, properly separated set of files instead of dumping everything into one blob. When you want real project structure, describe the project structure. Prompts aren't just for writing new code, they're great for debugging too. Here's a find user function that sometimes returns undefined for users that clearly exist. The bug is subtle. Inside the find callback, it uses a single equals sign, which assigns instead of comparing. Notice how the prompt is structured. It shares the code, describes the symptom, then asks for 4 specific things. Identify the bug, explain why it causes the issue, provide corrected code, and add safeguards against similar bugs. That last step matters because you're not just patching one line, you're asking the AI to help you avoid the whole class of mistake. Giving the model both the code and the observed behavior, then asking for a structured response turns it into a focused debugging partner instead of a vague guesser. Let's pull it together. Whether you're generating a function, a full API with tests, or designing a prompt for something complex like a React data fetching hook with loading, error, and retry states, the same idea holds. Think about the types, the edge cases, the style, and the structure, then put all of that into the prompt. Complete context produces code you can use immediately. Now it's your turn. Try one of these prompts right now. You can run it directly on this lesson page at FreeAcademy AI using the interactive prompt playground, or paste it into an AI assistant like ChatGPT or Claude and watch the difference good context makes. Write a complete prompt, see the code it returns, and keep refining until the output is something you'd ship.